Hi, welcome to lesson 20C, measuring the spread of data. The goal for today's lesson is to learn a variety of techniques to find the spread around the center of data. So yesterday in 20B, we looked at a variety of ways of finding the center of data, being the mean, the median, and the mode. And today and in the next couple of days, we're going to be looking at seeing how spread the data is, how spread out it is from the maximum to the minimum, and to see how far away it is from the center. That'll kind of show us the precision of the data to see if it's really close to the center, then we know that the data is very precise. If it's very spread out, then it's a little bit less reliable. Okay, so what we basically are going to be looking for here is, like I mentioned, the spread of the data, and we want to see how the data is distributed around the center. So we're going to be looking at range. That's one of the things we're going to be looking at. We're going to be looking at the interquartile range, and that's shortened to IQR, just for a reference. And in the next couple of days we'll look at variance and standard deviation. The range itself is basically the difference between the largest value and the smallest value. Okay, it doesn't really tell us a whole lot, it just tells us the full scope, I guess, from the minimum to the maximum value and how spread out the data is. It doesn't really tell us a ton. It's not very reliable because it just only uses two data points. It uses the maximum value and the minimum value, and then we just see how spread out the data is. So it doesn't really tell us a great deal. And when we look at the interquartile range, we use the concept of median to look at this idea. So basically, we know the median will take the data and it'll split it into two halves. So if we were to illustrate a set of data, say from here to here, this would be the minimum value, this would be the maximum value. Then the median, we'll split that in half. I think that would be around here-ish, if I'm not mistaken. So that would be the median. And then if we take, if we divide the lower half into two halves, then we would see that we get quarters. Now this right here would be called the first quartile, or the lower quartile, or Q1. That's the 25th percentile, meaning that 25% of the data is equal to or below this point. The median would then be called the second quartile, or Q2. Up here we would have the third quartile, or the upper quartile, or the 75th percentile, meaning that 75% of the data is equal to or below Q3. We can find the position, as we know, we can find the position of the median by doing n plus 1 divided by 2, right? So n is the number of data in total, plus 1 divided by 2. We can do the same sort of thing for the lower quartile. We can say, we can find that directly by saying n plus 1 divided by 4. So we don't have to find the median and then find half of the lower half to find this. We can just go from the total number of data values add 1 and divide by 4 to get that. For the 75th percentile, or Q3, the upper quartile, we can say n plus 1 divided by 4 multiplied by 3, because it's 3/4 of the data. Okay, so then that would be a quick way to find the upper quartile. So those are a couple things we can find from the data, which will help us. And then now we look for the interquartile range. This is the IQR I was mentioning. And the interquartile range finds just what it seems to suggest. Interquartiles, meaning we're looking at the range of data, between the first and third quartile. And if we look at this, because the data is divided into 4 sections, that would mean that we're looking for the middle 50% of the data. So that gives us the majority of the data. Basically, that's around the center of the data. Okay, so the interquartile range is simply found by Q3 minus Q1. And the interquartile range, as you can tell, because it's the middle 50% of the data, it's not affected by minimum values or maximum values. It's still just that cluster of values around the center. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at a quick example using graphing technology. But before we do that, could I please ask you to look on page 518 at example 6, and then lower down on the page example 7, read through that, and then on page 519 look at example 8. Okay, so please read through those things. What I'm going to do is I'll go through an example using graphing technology, and then you'll have seen it once before we start using the TI-84 calculator tomorrow in class. If you happen to be, if you've got the disk that I lent you, you can download a free PDF reader called Foxit Reader, and that will link the links to from the various links, or the hyperlinks, I guess, that are in the textbook, so that you can get to the self-tutor when you look through these examples, and the Foxit Reader will then link you right to the graphing calculator instructions that you'll be able to follow. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at the graphing calculator instructions here, and I'll kind of go through this with you here with my graphing calculator. And so what we're going to do is turn this on. What I'd like you to do first of all, every time you go in, I'm just going to click 1 on here for now, just to not show this again. What you should first do is clear the memory anytime you go into a graphing calculator. So go to second, and then plus, and then 7, 1, 2, and then it says, gives you a message, RAM cleared. Okay, so that just clears all the work that would have been stored on there previously, and then I'll just clear that. Okay, so to start looking at one variable statistics, I'm going to put some data values into list 1. So I'm going to hit stat and edit. So I'm just going to click enter here, and then so I'm going to be starting to put values into list 1. So I'll just add these in that are on the in the instructions. And anytime you put in a value, press enter, so make sure it registers. Don't just arrow down. Okay, I'm going to do 2, 3, 3, 3. So I've got all the data in. So in order now to make use of that data, make use of the calculators so we can see, get some of the calculations much easier and quicker, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to Stat. I'm going to arrow over to the right to Calc. So that arrow, moving this over to the right will change the highlight from Edit over to Calc, which is Calculations. And this is highlighted. Choice 1 is highlighted already, so I can just press Enter, or you can just press 1. It doesn't matter. So choose 1. If you wanted to choose, say, 4, you could just click 4, and it would go right to linear regression. But I want to stay with one variable statistics, so I'm just going to press Enter. And so we're looking at the data in list 1. That's correct. I'll leave it like that. Frequency list, that's if we've got group data. We don't need that right now, so I'm just going to click Enter to pass that. And then we're highlighting Calculate, so I'm going to press Enter again to calculate. And then it goes through the calculation quickly. So the very first line here is the mean. There is X bar. So the mean of the sample, or in this case the population because we used all the data that was in there, the mean is 5.608, whatever. So when we round to 3 significant digits, that would be 5.61. Okay. Here's the sum of all the data points, 129. These other things we'll get to in a moment, or in the next couple lessons. And the number of data is 23. And then I'm going to arrow down here to show some of the other important information here. So the min value, the minimum value is 2, as you saw in the list as you were typing them in. The maximum value is 9. The median is 6. So those group of 6s that we entered, one of those 6s would be the actual middle of the data values. The first quartile is 4 and the upper quartile is 7. So from here then we can look at the interquartile range and just subtract 7 minus 4. We can also find the range of the data and we do 9 minus 2. Okay, so that will help us get some of the information that we need. This is a good way to quickly check our work to make sure that what we've calculated previously is correct. Okay, so that is about it for lesson 20C. And what we'll do is tomorrow in class, if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. And otherwise, we'll go through a couple examples in class, and then you have the rest of the time to work on things to finish up practicing your skills. In the meantime, take a look at these examples that I mentioned to you, and also please look at a couple of the questions in this homework list as you see right here. And you don't have to finish them all, but just take a little look at them, and that will be it for today. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you in class.